Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of the SMB Labs podcast, presented by 910 West. We experiment with small business so you don't have to. Today, our guest is Jody Owen. And without further ado, here's your host, Jasmine Holmes.
Thank you for joining us. Today, I'm here with Jody Owen, an excellent business coach and consultant. I'm going to turn it over to her to tell you a little bit more about her business.
You know, I am really a person, I call myself a holistic business coach because I not only work with the business and trying to get it going and make it streamlined and simple, but I work with you inside of the business so that your expression as a leader and as a person working inside of the business is top-notch as well. I don't think that you can grow a business without growing yourself. I mean, it's often said that businesses are the best self-development project you can ever take on, right? And so, you know, if you want to grow your business, you got to grow yourself and vice versa. And that's the way that I work. I really work on making things simple and easy and that you experience a lot of growth.
I hadn't heard that before, but that has absolutely been my experience. So that is great advice and a perfect segue to why we're talking today. Because, you know, there's one of the first things you'll learn in business for success is the importance of setting goals and having that vision and really kind of know where you're going. But I think the flip side of that is what happens when you don't get where you want to go, when you don't meet those goals, and not just one time, but, you know, a lot of times it's kind of repeatedly, and you start to get the frustration mounting as self-doubt comes in, you know, a lot of different things, and you start sort of wondering, you know, is it me? What's going on? A lot of times we place blame on outside areas. And so I think that's, you know, so I think that around the idea, the flip side of the goal setting is, really when and how do you start taking a look at going, what's going on here? There's something deeper happening. And so
right.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of symptoms that people experience, and it kind of sometimes just sneaks up on them. Things like, you know, you just feel like you're stuck in the mud, like you can't move forward. You're not attracting clients, or you're having problems in the relationships, either within your team or even at home. You know, that's why I call myself holistic, because everything that you do anywhere relates to everything else. You might start feeling overwhelmed, or you keep repeating patterns. It's like, didn't I go through this with this already? You know, it's same thing, different people, different circumstance, but it's the same thing that keeps happening and keeps like setting you back almost, or you almost get to a goal and then it backs off, and then you almost get there again and then it keeps backing off. And you know, sometimes people just they get so frustrated because they don't know where to go from there. It's like it's just not working right, or maybe they're afraid to move forward. There could be a lot of times where people have, you know, the things like the imposter syndrome. You know, who am I to do this, right? Or, you know, well, if I change, is it going to be okay? You know, I've been taught to be humble, so I shouldn't express myself and have a voice that's that loud. It could be conditioning that they've received as they grew up, and or even as adults. Sometimes we take on stuff, beliefs even, that aren't ours. So there just could be a myriad of things, but it usually shows up in your lack of ability to get where you want to be, or to be just fully expressed and have a voice.
You gave us a lot to unpack there. So let's kind of step through that a little bit at a time. So let's start with some of the signs that that you might be the problem, that you may be the one who's getting in the way of your own success. So, and you touched on those quickly, but let's kind of just step through that a little bit more slowly. What are some of those symptoms? Like you said, you're feeling frustrated. You're feeling like you're having some of the same things happening over and over. But if you could maybe give an example or a little bit more detail of that.
Sure. So one of them, you know, let's just take the overwhelm, for example. I would say probably 90% of the people that come to me at some point are overwhelmed. There's too much to do. I don't know how to get it all done. I can't manage it properly. Is there something wrong with me? And I was recently working with a client that expressed her overwhelm. And, I challenged her and I said, I'm wondering if you aren't using that as a crutch. Oh, no, not me. And that's one of the first signs. We'll talk about some of the signs also in a different manner later, but that's one of the first signs. If you are like so defensive that, oh no, that couldn't be me. It's like, that's where I dig in, because that's usually your ego mind trying to protect something, a place of vulnerability for you that, maybe it's not so pretty and you don't want people to see. So, I challenged her. I said, maybe you're using a crutch. Oh, no, not me. And then we went in and I said, usually overwhelm is asking for help. You're wanting to do it all yourself. You get to be a martyr. Isn't that great? And then you're overwhelmed and you're resentful. So what would happen if you just asked for some help? And so this session that we had this morning, she's come back and she's asked her family to help with some things around the house. And in the last 6 months or so, she's actually taken on an assistant that is much better qualified to be in the place. She had to muster the courage to fire the previous one, took on a new assistant. This assistant is doing great things. And now she has time to market, build relationships, and build her business.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yes, you do.
In interests of confidentiality, we won't mention any names. But you're absolutely right. And I think we live in a time where it's really is easy to default to that of I'm busy. That's something I found myself seeing a lot in the last probably 18 months, and actually a habit I'm trying to break myself of, oh, how you been? Oh, I've been really busy. I'm really busy.
Right.
Because I think we do need to take a step back from that. So that's a really great one. So somebody who may need to really examine and take a step back is somebody that it seems like there's never enough time to get to their goals.
Exactly.
Fine. Okay. Any others?
I worked with another client that she was going to be the head of a fairly large organization, and didn't feel like she was ready. I don't know what to do. All of these people, these leaders that have come before me are so great, and who am I to be stepping into this position? And she surely was qualified to do it, but she didn't believe in herself or couldn't see herself, more importantly, in that role. So we worked together for quite a bit of time, just kind of unpacking where that came from and why didn't she believe in herself, and actually giving herself permission to just be herself and be the leader the way that she wants it to be. She didn't have to be like everybody else. And she didn't realize that that was part of the equation. She was comparing, which is always a dangerous place to go. Yeah. She was comparing herself to the other people that had gone before her, and her personality is nothing like theirs. So it wasn't working. It was causing her stress and distress. And we unpacked her ability to be confident in herself, build that up. And she had a wonderful term, very successful term.
Well, and so that's, I think there's two important points in there. One of which it's definitely, sometimes our self-confidence gets in our way. And I think a lack of self-confidence is one of the hardest things to have, to find your own awareness about, because, you're in this place that you're already not self-aware. So I think that's one that that one you almost have to have somebody from the outside help point out to you, because it's really hard to see that on your own.
Exactly. Yeah. And even for you, you want to talk about your example with the packages? I mean,
oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why don't you dive through it? Because you're really the mastermind, the architect of that.
So we were working together on some business things, and it was actually a group setting to begin with, and then we worked together individually. And you were spending a lot of time spinning on making custom offers to people. And so, I suggested, let's take a look at packages. And you were a little bit resistant at first because you didn't want to be put in the place of being boxed in and not providing the best possible service to your clients in the best possible way. So we came at it from kind of a different angle, and just we're able to see where the commonalities were, but still giving you the freedom to make any changes that needed to be. But having that foundation in place gave you the ability to streamline things to where you weren't spending so much time putting those offers together and proposals together for people.
Yeah, it's a really great example. And part of that too is then, and like say, going back to that self-confidence thing, when you've got it mapped out really clearly like that, when you're having that conversation, you know exactly where the conversation's going. So you have a higher level of confidence in it. And so you deliver it with a little bit more authority. And I will say, yeah, just as a personal testimonial, the work that we did together it impacted my business, and not just in that example, in many other ways, because there was definitely a lot of subconscious beliefs myself that was holding me back, that I wasn't getting where I wanted to go, and things that just weren't even on my radar. And then we kind of worked through them, like said, in that group setting, very subtly. My peers were getting assisted while I was too. And I think that subconscious element is an interesting one, because I think that's really what we're talking about here.
Exactly. It's the stuff that you can't see, and sometimes people may see it, or more like they may experience it in you and of you, but they can't quite put their finger on it either. So sometimes it just takes somebody like me that has a skill in doing that. That's something that I've been able to do. I'm blessed with certain skills and talents that allow me to just, instead of just, putting a Band-Aid on and trying a new system or trying this or trying that, I work energetically, and I can actually go into the source of it and help you uncover the source of it, to bring it to the front, to where we can address it, talk about it, heal it, do whatever needs to get done to get past that. And then that's when the confidence comes in, because you find that you're moving forward. And as you move forward, you start building momentum and more confidence comes. So, that's when you start really shining. It's like, oh, okay, so I've got past that. So what's next, right? What else can I do here? And I think it just starts building on itself as you start throwing those things off and saying, that's not me, that wasn't worth it. Or, healing places that are of deep hurt that you can't even see for yourself. And it takes an outside perspective sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, there are times where, and even if it's people who are close to you, they're just too close to the issue, or they may want to hold back to, try to not hurt your feelings. And sometimes you just need that third party who's not at all familiar, doesn't know what's going on, because they'll come in and see things that, everybody yourself and everybody who's close to you just couldn't see, because again, it's that, you can't see the forest for the trees kind of thing. So absolutely.
Exactly.
There's some real power, like you said, in that outside perspective to create the catalyst, and then you run with it from there.
That's right. It gives you the ability to then, as you take that on, you can start seeing things for yourself a little bit sooner and sooner and sooner. And so things that were mountains before, they're just molehills, as you get further down the track. And it's like any other muscle that you would do. The more that you practice it, the stronger you're going to get in those kinds of skills. And a lot of us, myself included, weren't given those skills at home or when we were growing up, or those tools in our tool belt. It was things that I have done self-development work for 38 years now. And it just takes a lot of work. And sometimes it's ugly. Sometimes it's really ugly when you look at something and you see the way that you've been, and it's not what your heart wants you to be, or that that you're not that way, but you got to face the ugly stuff, because if you don't, it's still there and it's still presenting, and other people can experience it. They see it, they feel it. And it's in your personal life as well as your business,
Yep.
We are energetic beings. Animals are energetic beings. They can tell, like horses, the people who do horse therapy. I mean, the horses can feel you. Well, humans do the same thing. So let's get all cleaned up and move forward, right?
Right. Well, and I think a lot of it too goes back to, and you touched on that a little bit earlier, is a lot of these issues can stem from programming, things we were told as kids. And that's where I think kind of the ugly piece comes in, because it's stuff that maybe like unconscious behaviors that you have because it was, due to your upbringing or things that you were said, or, things kids said to you at school, and those things that sort of stuck with you that you're not aware of. And so absolutely, I think that's that ties into it too.
Well, and we develop this, a lot of times we develop a survival mechanism for whatever it is that's being presented to us, and whatever time it's being presented to us. So it may be when you were 3 years old or 6 years old, and we still come at that from that same 3-year-old or 6-year-old perspective. When as adults, we have a lot more tools now to deal with things. So we just need to go back and kind of work with what that was as that little person, and bring it forward using the things that we can now, and, to bring it out and take care of it.
So we've had a great conversation here, really talking about this idea of how the subconscious and those factors that can influence success and reaching your goals that are inside so much more than outside. And so what I'd like to do is kind of transition into, and let's talk a little bit about some of the things that, if somebody's listening to this and they're saying, wow, that's me, or yes, I am totally frustrated, I feel like I've been banging my head against the wall about the same thing forever. What are some things that they can do? What are some activities, some ways you can start, like you said, working through some of this?
So I'm going to say becoming conscious, but that's really big. So I'm going to,
okay.
Right?
Start, yeah.
It's a lot of times we walk around in the world unconscious. So it's really about becoming conscious.
Yeah.
And that just requires you to become more aware of the things that are happening for you. So becoming more aware of when you're not connecting with your team or your clients or your family or whatever that is. Noticing triggers, noticing where you get triggered, noticing the places where you get defensive, and saying, oh, isn't that interesting? Maybe I should take a look at that, because I found myself getting really riled up and it really wasn't anything. Right? So it's like, oh, I'm really triggered with that.
So would you recommend like a journal or journaling or something as a way?
Absolutely. Journaling is a great way to get that out. However it is for you, I usually hit things from a lot of different angles, because what works for some may not work for another. Sometimes it's just a matter of, oh, gee, I yelled at that person and I don't even know why I was so angry.
Okay.
That kind of thing. Asking yourself, why do I feel that way towards them? What's underneath there that's making me not be right here?
So if it's a case where you walk away from a conversation and you're kind of going, wow, like what just happened, that would be a time to say, okay, let's.
Right. Or you're laying in bed thinking, did I really say that to that person? Right?
Yeah, and we've all had that where you're like, oh, I could have, like what, I can't believe I said that, okay, so great.
Right. So, another thing is just to make the choice to muster up your courage and start looking at what's not working in your life, because your life is going to change if you do that, guaranteed. And there may be people in your community that aren't going to be in your community anymore because you're doing some of this work. They are taking you at who you were, and you're going to be changing. So there may be people that drop off, and guess what? It's usually for the best. A lot of the people that are entangled, that are vampires, that you've been caretaking and not allowing them to take on their own responsibility, they'll get angry. So you have to be courageous through this process and just say, I'm choosing to be my fullest expression of myself.
Yeah, it can be hard. And I think that women may fall into this trap a little bit more than men, but you feel the guilt about it too. But I will say, and I wrote a newsletter about this earlier this year, I kind of I've been on a purge binge for about a year in many different ways. But one of the things I did this spring is I fired a bunch of clients where the relationships just weren't working. And I have to say, because it was kind of amazing, because there was some things on the business to-do list that I just felt like were never getting done. We were never making any progress. And they weren't even related to anything with these clients. But when I finally was like, we've got to clean house, and I did clean house, all of a sudden those things just started getting done. It was amazing to me, which, I mean, I knew this, but like sometimes you just got to like remind yourself and do it again, so that the purge, as hard as it may be, as the guilt we may feel about it, I think it's an amazing.
And the timing, I mean, maybe you weren't ready for it before.
Yeah.
You had to get some other things in place or whatever that is. So there's a lot to say about the timing of things, and how you're being within that timing. So, for myself, I'm streamlining a lot of things in my own business. I'm all about systems and procedures, not to the point to where they lock you in, but they give you, again, that foundation to stand on. And so that you can have a place where you can make a quick decision, where you can see, does this align with my business goals or doesn't it? Because you've got the systems that support you, whether you're doing that, on a daily basis or quarterly basis or whatever. And another thing is to really, so often we're zooming towards our goals and pushing towards our goals. And sometimes you just need to stop and let things just kind of settle for a minute. And part of that involves going to the back, what I call the back of the boat. When you're driving the boat, you have your team on board, you're so busy moving forward that you don't take a minute to go to the back of the boat and see where you've come from and all that you've accomplished, and just really take that in and, be with that for a minute. And it's kind of like, I feel like self-development is kind of like this. It's like you go up a mountain and then you hit here and then you hit there. And you kind of need those plateaus to be able to rest and to take in and to integrate, because there's a lot of movement, and it feels chaotic when you're in the middle of change. It's not comfortable.
Yeah.
So it isn't, so you just need that rest time to kind of let things settle in. And usually what happens is then when you get like almost like a jet taking off on the next thing, right? It just gives you that much more energy to get to the next level.
That idea of the plateaus really sticks with me, because I think that is a great example of you work up this hill, you work up this hill, and then you get to that little rest period, and it's a great time to reflect and look back, because inevitably in business you're going to start going up that hill again. So appreciate where you've come from, and then start climbing up the hill again. So I think that's a really great illustration.
Yeah. I hate to, people always want to look at the hockey stick, right? And have it just be, an upward. And I don't think that's healthy, because I think that you miss a lot of things if you don't take that minute to rest and integrate. If you're putting new procedures and systems in place, it takes a little while for that to become rote. And if you're working on yourself the same way, you've made a lot of changes. Takes a minute for everything in your body to catch up to all of those changes, and your community and your environment as well, right?
Well, so it's fascinating, because I'm really into yoga, and that's one of the things, the relaxation at the end, that's the whole purpose of it, is to give your body, it takes that muscle memory, and it's sort of integrating what you just learned in the practice. So there's the mental aspect, which is the meditation with it, but it's really your body integrating those moves and building that muscle memory. And it's, as I started to learn that, as I've gotten more into it, it's really fascinating to me, which is to me exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly. Indeed.
So at what point do you say, okay, I've tried some of these techniques, but I need outside help? Like, how do you, and where do you go from there when that's time?
That's the thing that I had last on my list here for implementation, is to get help, whether it be me or another coach. I would love for it to be me. But anytime that you can reach out, there's all kinds of coaches, there's all kinds of support systems. You have to kind of figure out who's the best fit for you. And so that's a give and take process from the coach's perspective as well as the potential clients. I would love to be able to work with you. I'm offering, a half-day alignment session where we take 3 hours and really do a deep dive into what's working, what's not working, what do you want to move forward with, where are you stuck? Let's get in there and figure out what's out of alignment with your vision, your mission, your purpose, yourself, and see if we can't get those things. It's not going to happen in 3 hours, but we can at least get it going to where you can start moving ahead and you have a path to move on. I think that's really important. Anybody listening to this podcast, which is SMB Labs, you get 20% off. So just say that you want to book one of those with me and mention that you heard this on the podcast, and there you go. I'm at jodyinspires.com. That's my website. And my email is yes@jodyinspires.com.
And we'll have links and that offer detail in the show notes as well, so that you can easily take Jody up on that offer if that's something that you'd be interested in. And I can say, as somebody who has participated in one of those alignment sessions, that's essentially what I did with Jody when we did that work on my packages a few years back. And it really did make a huge difference. I had one of my best years ever in the business after doing that session with her in December.
Woohoo!
So there you go, a little testimonial for you.
Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate it.
So we have one last question that we ask all of our guests at the end. And so this is, tell me, what is it that keeps you passionate about your business? What is it about what you do, or what is it that you do that keeps you waking up and coming and doing this every day? Because we know some days it's hard. So how do you keep your passion?
It's an interesting question, because for me, it's not what keeps me passionate. It's the work that I've done through my lifetime, the self-development work and the understanding of what I'm here to do. It's just a part of me. And it's like, if I don't do this, I can't not do this. Let me put it that way. I can't not do this, because it's what I do, whether I'm standing in line at the grocery store or working in a job for somebody else or in my own business coaching someone. It's just what I do. So it's that deep inside of me that there's nothing out external that's a driver for me. It's just who I am.
So living your purpose. That's what you're saying. Living your purpose is okay.
Right.
I love it. I mean, it goes right with what we've been talking about today, which is when you do get that awareness, gain that awareness, and you do the work on some of those unconscious things that are holding you back, that really allows you to step in and be your true best self and do the work that is your true purpose that you're meant to do.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for interviewing with us today. We really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. And if you are interested in learning more about what Jody does or working with her, if you feel like you've got some unconscious behaviors that are keeping you from the success that you'd like, please take advantage of the offer. We've got those details in the show notes. Thank you, Jody.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Simple.
We hope you enjoyed episode 1 of the SMB Labs podcast. If you'd like to learn more from Jody, check out our show notes at 910west.com. Thanks again. See you next time.